and welcome to the final project poster presentation for IST 719 Information Visualization, Spring 2016. My name is Sagar Dubey, and my project is titled India, 3 Decades of Change, and this is my poster. Just a quick note before we begin. There are 3 visualizations in this poster, 2 of which are actually created using D3 in JavaScript, which means they are dynamic visualizations that can be seen in a browser. So these are static screenshots from that rendering. All right, let's begin. What is my poster about? So my poster is about India and the various changes that it has gone through in the last 3 decades. So this is the introduction section here. So I'm going to tell the story of what has been going on in India through essentially 3 perspectives, that of economics, politics, and demographics. My intended audience is people interested in elections, interested in the general culture and history of India, and students from India themselves who want to get a sort of 10,000 feet view of what has been going on in the last 3 decades and how it impacts them in their daily life. As you can see here, this whole process started out with some rough sketches, which I've covered in previous assignments. And as you can see, these are very crude, hand-drawn approximations. And there's about half a notebook filled with even cruder sketches than this. So this is what I set out to do, and I think I've accomplished most of it. All right, then let's go to the first visualization. So today in the news, there's a lot of talk about the effects of rapid aging in Western and developed countries. So I wanted to explore what it looked like to have a country that's growing young at a really fast rate. So the World Bank considers this 15 to 59 years age bracket to be the working age group. And as you can see, I have tallied 3 decades of census data in these 3 visualizations, where this shade of blue represents the working age population. So as you can see, in 1991, it was about, say, 40%, and this is state-wise data. And in 1991, India liberalized its economy, and there was a massive economic boom. So as you can see, across decades, and in the decade of starting in 2011, we had nearly 66% of the population across the country was in the working age group, 15 to 59 years old. This also creates what is known as a demographic dividend when a majority of the country is eligible to be in the working age group, and India is slated to reach there in the year 2020. The source of this data is the official government census website linked here. And there is a short note about states. So in 2000, India created 3 new states, and they're actually accounted for in this map. But because in 1991 they didn't exist, we've had to make some adjustments for data parity. The second visualization explores the question about formation of political parties. Now, between 1991 and 2014, India had 6 elections, out of which 5 elections involved minority or coalition governments. This means that no single party had command of the parliament, and thus regulatory issues were subject to immense hurdles. Through this visualization, I have attempted to show what it looked like between 1991 and 2014 as these elections went by, and how there is a possible correlation with the age of the country. So as the country became younger, we actually see that the political intent of the people becomes more united rather than divisive. Of course, this is complete correlation, and as the disclaimer says here, there are many hidden confounding variables such as increase in GDP, increase in literacy, and there could be a whole bunch of things. So let's start with 1991. Here, as you can see, the state is gray because in 1991, the state of Jammu and Kashmir actually did not hold elections because of security threats over there from the neighboring countries. The colors represent two major national parties, and light blue represents other parties. So in 1991, even though it appears as if the INC, which is the Indian National Congress, has some sort of a majority, they actually did not have enough seats to form the government. Um, so the blue area, which was other parties, had to lend their support to Congress, and Congress actually still didn't have enough support, and they ended up forming a minority government. This is the same government, by the way, which liberalized India. As you can see, in 1996, the anti-incumbency effect, as it is popularly known, kind of took place here, and the Indian National Congress lost out quite a bit. In spite of that, because they had the support, um, so because they had the support of these parties, they did not allow uh, the BJP to form a majority government quite so easily. So this was still a coalition for the BJP. And the same phenomenon repeated in 1999. In 2004, you had a clear case of the Indian National Congress, with the help of other parties, forming another coalition government. And however, in this particular decade, it's really interesting to note that there was a massive backlash. And as you can see, in 2009, the BJP ended up dominating. However, they still could not get a majority to form the government. And in 2014, as you can see, there's a pretty dramatic shift where, for the first time in 3 decades, India had a single party government. The third visualization involves a question. Is there a correlation between how quickly a state grows young and the growth in its GDP? So these two visualizations are essentially the same, except they're presented in a different way. So let's explore them. For the purposes of this visualization, I have taken the 5 most populous states in India and just chosen them for comparison. So here, as you can see, this axis, sorry about that. My computer is not cooperating. All right, so as you can see in this visualization, this axis represents the growth of the young population across 3 decades. So, and this axis is coordinated accordingly, and it's pretty rapid. So in the state of, as an example, in the state of Maharashtra, which is the orange line, you can see that the population, the percentage of young people really skyrockets. And if you look at the GDP growth, it's pretty linear, right? So even though there was a sharp uptick, the GDP did not really reflect that. Similarly, if you go to West Bengal, even though the population shot high, their GDP actually took a slight dip here, as you can see. To make this more useful for comparison, though, I thought it was better to normalize them and create this trend chart where we make the y-axis essentially disappear, and we normalize this particular line to be at the same scale where you can look at them. And as you can see, the data is also different because GDP data was available for 94 and census data was available for 91. The source for this data is the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So we tried to figure out whether there was a link, and on the surface it appears there might not be. But I thought it was still an interesting question to study. So that is my poster, and that is my final project. So it's a story of a country going through tremendous change. It is the world's largest democracy in terms of population. By 2020, it'll be the world's youngest country, and we're in for some pretty interesting times given this situation here that is going on right now with a very popular prime minister. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to my final project and giving me this opportunity. I really enjoyed this class. The credits actually go to a classmate at the iSchool, Billy Seskovich, for the inspiration for this sort of a rendering. The links are given here. My friends also helped me a lot with the technical aspects of putting together this great visualization. Um, Thank you to the Indian government who have made immense strides and since 1991 have taken technological challenges head on. And last but not least, thank you so much to Professor Young for being patient with me through this. Here's the list of the software that I use. We use D3JS by Mike Bostock, formerly of the New York Times, Microsoft Excel, Sketch, R, Illustrator, and HTML to render the final website. Now for the most exciting part, which is the dynamic visualization, for which I will go to my browser. And as you can see here, the visualization 1 is rendered, and it's happening on its own, and this uses D3, so I'm in Chrome right now. And if you go here, so to be able to see the slider across the decades, there we go. So this is the first visualization, and you can see how dramatically India grows younger. So even the light blue population. So initially, we start out with a lot of children and old people. And suddenly we have a lot of young people. And they dramatically increase in a lot of states. And the second visualization is, so yeah, the second visualization is here. And there you go. So it's a pretty dramatic change, as you can see, across 6 elections. So 1991, this is the situation, 1996, 99. And so this, even though this is on localhost, this is actually alive on the internet right now, and all the code will be open source, and I will put the links on it on a report. But if you want to go and have a look at it, you can just go to this website, sagarlulz.bitbucket.org. That's where it's hosted. And I believe the repo should be public to you. So yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys like this. The third visualization was actually a static one, rendered purely using R and Excel and then Illustrator, because that was a lot of manual data munging from various sources, because GDP data is notorious for being unreliable across time. But please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much again.